So today we're going to be talking about the Salem Witch Trials. I have right here on my computer, I have a Word document where I recorded information that I found. I did most of this last night. I don't know why I did this. We're going to be going through, oh, hi, I'm Lilo, by the way. Yeah, that's probably really important to introduce myself. Welcome to my channel. We're going to be doing my logic project on the video again. We're going to be talking about the Salem Witch Trials, which were like really kind of bad, like really bad. And they went from February of 1692 through May of 1693. This year in logic, we used the fallacy detective book, and we talked about different fallacies and like statistical fallacies and just like fallacies, like red herrings and all that cool stuff. But I loved the unit on propaganda. Like, I don't know what it is about it. It was just so fun to learn about all the different stuff and to see how we all use fallacies in our daily lives as teenagers. But basically, I did propaganda, which is basically like advertising, and it can be good, it can be bad, or it can just be neutral. There's really no way to tell, except for if like it's bad, it's like manipulative, appealing to your fear or pity, which is actually really funny because I chose to do appeal to fear. And so there's a lot of fear, I feel like, in the Salem Witch Trials, because you have all these people out in the streets, probably like flyers like witches are among us. If you don't join us right now, you'll be next. But this is Salem Witch Trials, and you can definitely assume that people would be out there like with stuff like there, witches among us. Something bad happened to people back then in the 1690s. You were a witch. Like, if your friend could have kids, if you were independent, if you weren't independent, if you had a husband that died, if you're married, if you've been married too much, all that stuff, you're gonna be a witch no matter what. Like, there's really no way of escaping being a witch back then. So during the time of the Salem Witch Trials, there were 14 women and 5 men executed by hanging, and over 200 people were convicted of being a witch, or practicing witchcraft, period. 30 of these 200 that were convicted were found guilty, and 20 were found innocent, but they were still convicted. And how do we actually know if any of these people were guilty or innocent? We really don't. So we're going to be talking about things that have happened recently. So there have been a lot of accounts of witches recently, and in 2005 there was like a poll conducted. We also don't know how big the sample size was, or like the class or anything like that, which we also learned about in logic. And so we don't know like who all they interviewed, collected stuff from. Like, you know, like they could have had a bunch of like people who were into like the supernatural, and they could have just asked all of them. But 13% of Canadians and those in the United Kingdom believed in witches, and 21% of Americans believed in witches. And in different places of the world, trials are still being held. Keeping this in mind, different cultures have different things. Like, you know, their witchcraft could be like good or bad witchcraft. Like, you know, if you really go down to think about it, sure, there is witchcraft, even if they aren't like, you know, witches by like, or like Vampire Diaries kind of definition, or like Harry Potter definition. People still practice witchcraft. It's just a thing that people do, I guess. Like, they do like little charms and stuff, which, you know, whatever, it's your choice. You do you, boo. Basically, that's just a different thing that you need to keep in mind whenever you are looking at this, that in different cultures, witches can be good or they can be bad. Witchcraft can be good or bad in different cultures. It can be like, even if they don't like really believe it, it's still part of their culture. Like, you know, there's different types of witchcraft too. So, yeah. In the places of the world where these trials are still being held, it's like mainly, my phone is at 10%. It's where there are poor options for like healthcare and getting like better, and where people are just in really poor health all the time. So it's just like a very, like, they blame the diseases on witches kind of thing. Because like, you know, if you can't find a reason that you're sick, it must be witchcraft. Because it seems logical, kind of. Not really, but you know what, whatever. So the trials now, that are being conducted are like very violent, and sometimes they can be deadly. Most times they can be deadly. In Zambia, the self-proclaimed witch hunters will like go out and like give the people accused of witchcraft, and they will like kill them with a poisonous tea. In one Zambian town, a witch hunter killed 16 people in under 4 months. I don't know how you do that, honestly. That's just wild. Like, I don't look up to you, but that's just wild to me. In Papua New Guinea, I don't know how to say that. They also have a reputation for killing dozens of people. In January of 2009, one girl was burned alive after being accused as a witch and for spreading diseases. And then that next month, a father and his son were both burned for the accusation of performing witchcraft. During the 1970s, Nigeria experienced an oil boom, and this brought like so much like wealth and fortune, and like all this money came, and they're like, wait, it's got to be witchcraft, because like this is crazy, this is so good, I love it. But then in 2007, children in Nigeria were accused of witchcraft, and they were burned, poisoned, and abused. So yeah, that's really fun. It's not fun, I'm being sarcastic. In 2008 in Congo, a soccer player was accused of witchcraft after a riot broke out in one of Congo's cities, and 13 people were killed in a stampede. Unlucky number 13. Yeah. But like, seriously though, that's like, it's so sad though to think about, like all these people, because these people are so scared of witches they're accusing, and then so many other people are jumping on this little bandwagon. They're like, yeah, we should be scared of these witches too. They're appealing to their fear. And then in India, a woman who owned land could be accused of being a witch because she was independent. And if a woman bought like firewood, she could be trying to burn someone, and she could be a witch, which makes no sense because witches were burned at the stake. So logic not there. Also, old widows are seen as witches, which I think is so sad. In 2005, an 8-year-old London girl was accused of being a witch by one of her family members, and they abused her, and they rubbed chili peppers in her eyes. No, that's just the British authorities, thank goodness, they removed the girl from the household, and 3 of her family members were held accountable for treating her as a witch. 2005. How many years? 19 years ago. My brother's 20. That's not that far. All of these witch trials came from people's fears, and people who are afraid project that fear somewhere or onto other people. And there's no doubt that people would like take to the streets and be like, there's witches among us. If you don't step in, they'll come for you. They're appealing to other people's fear, and they're like coming in and they're bringing all these people in because they're all scared. And as we look more into this, you will see how propaganda is used in the witch trials. So those accused of practicing witchcraft are in so much more danger than those who actually are accusing them. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the Salem Witch Trials. You may hear some stuff because we got people, and I got a dog in my room. I should probably let her out, but until she starts scratching on the door, she is staying in here with me. So basically, the Salem Witch Trials were really bad. And it started when these younger girls accused these older women of practicing witchcraft. And so 14 women and 5 men were executed by hanging. And over 200 people were convicted of being a witch or practicing witchcraft. And 30 of the 200 were found guilty. 20 of them were found innocent, but they were still convicted. But how do we know if they were actually guilty or innocent? We really don't, because that's how it works. So this all started when these really young girls, one was 9 and her name was Elizabeth Paris, but she goes by Betty, and the other one was 11, who was Abigail Williams, and they were cousins, and they were staying at the Paris family house, and they just started like having like these spasms and like these like little fits, and they started barking, which is kind of scary. Yeah, so that started happening, and Betty's father was a Puritan minister. So when he found out about this, he called up the doctor, and he was like, hey, yo, these girls are sick, come help me. So the doctor's like, all right, bro, I'll be there. So the doctor comes, And he's like, I mean, I don't know what's happening. So they asked the girls, and eventually they're like, we must have been bewitched. It was Tituba who was their servant. And Tituba's like, girl, no. But, you know, she went on to trial, and eventually she was like, okay, fine, I bewitched them. If this was true or not. The dog just yawned. If this was true or not, no one really knows. Like, you know, she just confessed because she wanted it to be over with. And so during all the trials, Betty went to go live with other family members, and Abigail sat through all of the trials. And she accused 57 people of being witches, and she gave a final testimony in June of 1692. This girl was 11 through 12, and she accused 57 people of being witches. Like, that's just, The first woman to be accused and executed was Bridget Bishop. I don't know. I assume she was accused by the girls. I don't know. So Ann Putnam Jr. was 12, and her family played like a big role in the Salem Witch Trials because they all accused 60 people. I had to let Abby out, and then Eddie and Alexis said hi. So the next girl was Ann Putnam Jr., and she was 12, and her family accused about 60 people during the Salem Witch Trials, which was really crazy because, like, you know, they were doing all that, and they were like really great acquaintances. I don't know if they were friends, so I just say acquaintances. They were like great acquaintances with the Paris family. After Ann Putnam Jr. accused all these people, she tried to join the Salem Church many years later, but she was denied access because she accused all those people, which I think is really weird. It's kind of crazy, but honestly, I'm okay with that. Okay, next we have Elizabeth Hubbard. She was 17. She worked as a maid for her aunt and uncle because her parents were dead. So she was an orphan. She lived there with them and worked for them. Them as her aunt and uncle. Rachel and William Griggs. And this is a weird one. William Griggs was the doctor that like tried to treat, I guess, Abigail and Betty when they were like bewitched or whatever they were. So he knew that. And so all of the girls, there's one more girl, but all of the girls accused 29 people of being witches, and 13 of them were executed. And then Elizabeth, she also like fell into trances during the trials, and so like, oh my gosh, she's bewitching me. She's a witch, and she's making me fall into this trance. And so she did that every single trial. Finally, we have Mary Walcott, who was 16. She was the daughter of a Salem village militia leader, and she was related to the Putnams by marriage because Anne Jr. was Mary's step cousin. Mary lived next door to the Parises, so she's got all of that. And Mary's aunt was Mary Sibley. Mary Sibley was like the creator. She encouraged people to make these things called witch cakes, which were counter charms for the bewitched. Now let's just take a second. You accuse someone of doing witchcraft, and then you make counter charms. Who's the one doing witchcraft now, babes? Okay. And so the witch cakes were like something Mary Sibley just completely came up with on her own. It was a mixture of flour and the girl's pee. And it was fed to dogs to counter the magic. And if the kids were bewitched, the dogs would start acting crazy. Also because dogs were seen like as evil and connected to evil stuff, which makes me really sad. Because I always thought it would be black cats, but I still love black cats. And so after Mary Sibley suggested this idea, she was denied communion. Like, she was not allowed to take communion at church anymore because she was involved with doing counter magic. So yeah, that's crazy. Just to wrap it all up, people didn't understand that accusing people of being witches could be really dangerous. And as you can tell, all these girls just kind of jumped on the bandwagon together. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, there are witches among us. There's witches. Oh no, not like a... But like, you know, they just started going amok, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's witches, save us. And so everyone was like scared, and like, you should join us, you should believe what we believe, and the witches won't hurt you. And it was just like, what the heck? What's happening, girl?
It's just a bunch of hocus pocus.
And so recently we found out, we the people, we the united world, found out that ergot was a naturally occurring fungus that was found in rye, which is what they use for their flour to make bread and stuff that they eat. Eating ergot would make people like crazy, I guess, you know, like you'd see hallucinations and like you'd like behave weirdly and just all this crazy stuff started happening. And people believe that that was like the main cause of why people thought they were witches. And then that of course caused a whole boom of people like actually believing in witches, because other people that they knew saw witches. And so that's basically the real reason why so many people were tortured and burned alive, was because of this ergot that was found in rye. I just wanted to like do this project on the Salem Witch Trials because of like different propaganda and stuff, and like because once one person gets scared of something, they'll bring it up to all these other people, and then all these other people are going to be scared of something, and they're going to like yap about it to each other, and then they're going to turn to someone else that they see like, hey, you should come and you should join us doing this because there are witches among us and we don't like witches because witches are really bad. If you don't join us, if you don't help us kill these witches, you'll be next. Appealing to these people's fear. Or like, there's witches among us. There's witches among us. Buy this. This will keep the witches away. Do this. This will keep the witches away. Believe me. And just like all this like kind of manipulation, I guess. And like people like, well, Sally believes in witches. I should believe in witches too. We should both believe in witches. Oh my gosh, we're all gonna believe in witches. Bandwagon. Yeah, that's basically what happened. I feel like there's a lot of bandwagon, a lot of manipulation, a lot of appealing to people's fear. Hi. I feel like I should say something else for the Logic project. I hope I get 100.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?